welcome everyone. Welcome to the Women's Small Business and Leadership Network Ask an Expert. Today with us, we have the fabulous Dawn McGee, who is a nutrition coach, and she came up with this fantastic title, say, how to be, I can't take credit for this one, it's all Dawn, how to be a fit and fabulous entrepreneur. So like, who wouldn't want to be a fit and fabulous entrepreneur? So Dawn, thank you so much for joining us today.
Dani, thank you so much for having me on. Yes, we all want to be fit and fabulous, right?
Yeah.
That's why we do it.
Yes, everyone is fabulous, and definitely having the fit, that is a powerful combination. Fit, fabulous, and entrepreneur. Like, man, just get out of our way. So how did you find your way to, I know a little bit about your background, but if you'll share that with our audience, because how did you find your way to becoming, from your background in like, it sounds like corporate high tech, to being that health and wellness coach?
Well, it's a very long and meandering story, to be perfectly honest, following lots of breadcrumbs. But the truth is, I have always loved food, always. And, throughout my life, I realized that the way that I grew up learning how to eat was not serving me. I grew up in a household where it was very much meat and potatoes. And, I grew up in a Jewish household, and so there was a lot of food as it pertains to social environments. And, so we celebrate with food, we mourn with food. I'd never go over to someone else's house without bringing some food or wine with me. It's everywhere. And that's okay, but you have to understand what you're putting into your body at the same time. So you can't just eat anything willy-nilly, right? And so over the years, I learned that it was really important to fuel my body and to give me stuff where I could think better, I could feel better, I had more energy, I was a nicer person to deal with because I was in a better mood instead of being cranky from the sugar crash. So that's sort of part of how I made my way into being a nutrition evangelist. It's just from my love of food and not wanting to give up the things that I loved and not wanting to be hungry or feel deprived or feel like I was on a diet all the time. That's no way to live.
No, absolutely. Absolutely not. And it seems like we have some other wonderful members of the group who are in the fitness and wellness. They talk about like ditching the diet culture, and like Lisa Dahl is wonderful. She talks about that in terms of making really that lifestyle switch, and not that, okay, I'm going to be on a crash course diet and I'm going to eat like melons and diet Sprite for 2 weeks. And like, that's my path to wellness, because I'm going to drop like 10 pounds in 2 days. So do you recommend that? No.
Do I recommend it? No, nope. Not on my list of things to do. Although I will tell you, having come home from my freshman year in college with more than the freshman 15, my mom put me on the stewardess diet, and that, became a long love-hate relationship, mostly hate, with variety of crazy diets. I do not do diets. I do not coach diets. I do not talk to people about diets. We talk about sustainable balance and having results for a lifetime, not just a moment in time, because this is our lives, right? We are way too busy to have dieting as another full-time job, right? Who wants that? We want to enjoy our lives.
That makes sense. And one of the questions I wanted to ask you is, like, in terms of the planning and prep and mindset that comes around to making that diet shift, like and we're all strapped for time. Like, where do you find the time? How do you carve out the time with it to start making a shift towards a healthier life?
Well, and that's a great question, because I don't spend a ton of time with food prep. I'm not one of those, make my meals for the week on Sunday where I spend all day cooking. Now, certainly in this time where we've been home more, we're cooking a ton more. And that's great. But normally that's not a huge part of my week. I will do things like make a batch of protein. We get fish delivered once a week, and so I'll cook that up and have that ready to eat. We'll make a big batch of shredded chicken in our Instapot. You can have that ready to grab. And then you've got fruits, you've got veggies. It's super simple to go, I'll take a little bit of this protein. I'll take a little bit of these veggies, carbs. Maybe you need to add some healthy fats. That could be some avocado or some great tasting oils or a handful of nuts. And that's it. It's super simple. So it doesn't take a lot of time. It does take a mindset shift. You have to be willing to go, yeah, you know what? I'm not going to grab a bag of Doritos for lunch today. I'm going to look and see what I can do. That's a protein, fat, and a carb that's going to feed my body. That's where the work comes in. It's up here.
I agree. And it's mindset in terms of thinking about it differently, but also just education. I remember going through life and thinking that, as long as I ate something and I wasn't hungry, then it was food. Yet again, I joke that I joke that if I wrote a book about this, it would be like what I learned about work-life balance and wellness by doing everything wrong. Because again, I was in that, and I had to retrain myself to like, oh no, like food has nutrition. You need to feed your body for that, not just grab something in quick. And if anybody has questions for Dawn, please, put it in the feed as, hi Robin, hi Elsa, hi Cheryl, hi Lisa. Do you recommend? Oh, so we have a question that came up in terms of, we had just mentioned protein, carbs, and fats. Do you recommend following macros instead of a diet?
And that's macros, right? So your macros are your macronutrients. So your three main macronutrients are your protein, carbs, and your fat. And so when I talk with people about how to eat simply and easily, we talk about every meal having protein, fat, and carbs in it. As far as what balance they go into, you experiment a little and see what your body responds to. What keeps you satisfied enough to the next meal? What gives you enough energy to think creatively during the day? For me, I do a reasonably even balance of protein and carbs, and then a little bit less fat. It's not super complicated, and I don't use any software. I don't really measure stuff. I do portions by my hand size, right? So my protein portion is about my palm, and my carbs are about a fist. And my fat, if I'm doing like an avocado slice, it's about my thumb, or a small handful of nuts. And that's it. It's super simple.
Let me ask you this, because this is a point that confused me, and thank you for answering that question for Cheryl, is that when I was working with a trainer years and years ago, and they talk about carbs, and I'm like, okay, so is carb a piece of bread or is carb a carrot? Like, what is, like, or are they both carbs?
That's a great question, because they are both carbs. And I think there's a misconception that carbs are evil, and they're not, because fruits and veggies are carbs. They're super, super important to get all the nutrients you need into your diet. Diet meaning what you eat as opposed to deprivation, right? And one of the things that people look at is, well, I have a starchy carb and a non-starchy carb. And then maybe, depending upon you and your goals, you may be overloading on carbs, because then you're having double the amount of carbs. So it all depends upon how you look at things.
I think that's a great answer, and I like how you put it out there in terms of like honoring someone's body too, because I have a whole bunch of friends that are they're into health and wellness, and it looks a little bit different for everybody.
Right. And it's really important to look at what your goals are. I was just talking with somebody this morning, and not be competing against what your neighbor is doing or what your friend is doing. Life isn't a competition, right? You want to come and show up as your best self. And so you want to feed your body and treat your body with great movement and recharging well, so that you can show up as your best self. It's not a competition.
In terms of movement, given that a lot of us are at computers for most of the day, what do you recommend to counteract that, or to bring in like during the day, and not just, or do you recommend, it's okay to like sit during the day and then you can go out and do like your hour, half an hour of exercise? Like, how do you bring that balance into the mix? Since we're all on like Zoom all day long now, it seems like.
Oh gosh, there are some days I am so zoomed out I can't possibly get onto another call. One of the things, ironically, timing wise, I had done just a couple of months before everybody shut in, is I got myself an adjustable standing desk. And so my desktop raises and lowers, and I won't do it now because it'll jiggle for you. But so I'm standing right now, and I typically stand all morning. And if I'm not on a call, I may pace and I'll walk around a little bit, and I'll wiggle and I'll stretch. And then, in the afternoon, I'll sit for a little while because I don't want to stand all day. And then I'll go for a walk. And then if I'm doing something in the evening, I'll make sure that I'm standing so that I don't get sucked into sitting there. And, wherever my time goes when I'm sitting there, wherever it goes to. But I think you have to look at your schedule, right? In an ideal world, I would love for everybody to get up and walk around for 5 or 10 minutes of every hour. But that may not be reasonable for how you live your day. But for sure, get up and move and stretch. Even if you're sitting at your desk, you can do some isometric exercises. You can wiggle your toes. You can walk in place without anybody knowing what you're doing. Super important to get up and move.
It is. I remember they come into like the realization once I started learning a little bit more about the body and how, and honoring that there's these fluids that go through our body and through our joints like all day long. And really the way they get to where they need to go is through movement. So that would be really bad to sit a lot.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I like to start my day with my workout. So I'll get up a little bit earlier, go downstairs to my basement and do my workout. That helps me wake up. It helps get everything moving. It helps me feel better. And then I'll do a walk outside at the end of the day. Cause for me, fresh air is what's keeping me sane these days.
Yes.
And I don't have a lot of leeway to do a lot else during the day. If I do, I absolutely will get up and do more stuff.
So we talked about movement. We talked about some food. Let's broach the topic of sugar. So is sugar the enemy? Like what is the deal?
Like carbs, right? It's not the enemy, but all of our fruits and vegetables, they all have natural sugars in them, right? So what would be good for you to avoid is the processed stuff, right? First of all, the artificial sugars, I strongly recommend that we stay away from artificial sugars. Whether you believe what you read or not these days, there's certainly been a lot of evidence that artificial sugars are not good for you in the long term. And then, next on the list of things to avoid if you can are the white sugars, right? Now, do I love a good chocolate chip cookie? Absolutely. I really do. But is that going to be lunch or dinner? No, I mean, it can't be, right? It's an occasional thing. And you want to keep it, to the treat level, not as a main food group in your day. And I know that there are people who feel like you should lower your fruit sugars. I'm not in that camp. I think that fresh fruit is one of the best things you can eat. Eat the rainbow, and that improves your micronutrient balance a lot. You get a ton more phytonutrients by eating your fruits and vegetables.
Oh, I love that. Eat the rainbow. I look at when I try to pick up things for my weekend post and that kind of thing, and I scroll through like healthy photos. I love it when you see it plate. It's so appetizing when you see that rainbow on the plate of the reds and the blues and the greens. It's just absolutely glorious.
I totally agree. I think it's super important. When I make a salad, it's always got lots of colors on it. Um, Having an appetizing plate of food is half the way to enjoying your meal. And the other half, of course, is the taste.
When it comes to veggies and fruits and having things at the ready, so like when I'm hungry, if I have like my carrots like prepped or something like that, I'll like reach for them versus like, okay, if I'm starving and I come in or whatever, if I don't have them prepped, I end up like grabbing something not good. So
Right.
because it's
Right.
easier to open a bag of Tostitos than it is to peel, wash, and slice a carrot. So what kind of things can we have prepped in our fridge that make this easier?
That's a great question. So, and I think that's the area where most people struggle the most, really, is those in between times. Because, depending on what time you get up, you have breakfast, you have lunch. Maybe there's not a huge gap between breakfast and lunch, and that's okay. But gosh, then between lunch and dinner, there's almost always a big gap. And, you don't want to be grabbing for the Doritos in the middle. So some of the things, and I look at it again from the macros, right? The protein, fat, and carbs. What can you keep in your house that's super easy to grab? Well, hard-boiled eggs in our house, we go through about 3 dozen a week
Oh,
because everybody grabs a couple of hard-boiled eggs when you want a snack. And so that gives you a really great source of protein plus fat, right? And then if you add some healthy carbs to it, right now we've got some great cherries that are in season, so a handful of cherries. I keep kiwis in my fridge. They tend to have a really good shelf life, so I can cut up a couple of those. They're delicious.
surprisingly good. Like
Yeah,
I'm
amazing.
almost mesmerized by kiwis in the refrigerator.
Yeah, they're fabulous. I love berries, but they don't last very long. So, my strawberries are constantly growing moldy before I have a chance to eat them. Um, if you're not doing eggs, you can have slices of grilled chicken cut up where you can just grab a couple of pieces. And then a handful of nuts. I love cashews. We've got cashews, we've got almonds, we've got sunflower seeds, we've got pumpkin seeds. Nuts and seeds are a great way to get some healthy fats. If you, it's almost sort of whatever source you like. There are also some really great healthy jerkies. I just tried a salmon jerky,
Oh,
which was
wow.
not too high in sodium. Super easy to eat, right? You can, not that I recommend this, but you could sit and eat it at your desk if you had to. Right. And then I know not everyone's a fan of supplements. I am a big fan of shakes to fill the gaps. So, I was sort of running today. I had my shake all prepared to go. Because like you, if I don't have something ready to go, I'm going for the Doritos. I'm going for the leftover pizza, right? I'm just like everybody else. So what I've done is I've set up my world to outsmart myself so that I don't go for the Doritos, that I've got something else ready to grab. So as soon as I finish a shake, I make my next one and leave it in the fridge so that it's there if I don't have the time or the interest or the energy to grab something else. But I also have a lot of stuff in my fridge that's ready to go.
That makes sense. No, it's setting, I think that's smart. And it's setting us up for success. It's like, because we know where the downfalls are. If anyone
Right.
has any questions for Dawn, feel free to talk on the live. And let's see. Hi Jamie. Hi April. Thank you for joining us. I know we have awesome health and wellness people on the live right now. And if anyone agrees with me in terms of like, we can know this stuff all day long, but still hearing it over and over again is still to reinforce the lesson is super helpful. And I'll throw this out to anyone who's listening and watching too, in terms of this Instapot. Everyone I do not have an Instapot. Everyone has an Instapot, and this chicken sounds good. Anyone is using this. Oh, hi, Karen. If anyone is using this Instapot, please let us know. What are you cooking in here? How are you using this? It's like this magical thing that I hear about, and I haven't bought one yet.
So I recommend it. And it was a gift from my husband to me last year, and I didn't want it. I was like, you're giving me kitchen stuff.
Oh,
Really? Okay.
was it
Um,
Valentine's Day?
it was not Valentine's Day, but I think it was my birthday and Mother's Day are right next to each other. So I think it was that for last year.
Okay.
Um, it's the best gift I've gotten in a long time. So we cook our eggs in it. You can do a dozen eggs at a time. Um, we do the shredded chicken, super simple. So before I go to sleep, we'll toss in a couple of pounds of chicken breast, cover it up with some chicken broth, spices of your choice, slow cook for 8 hours. Cooks while you're sleeping. You wake up, and it's amazing. You've got fresh chicken broth too. Rice. My son he's on a burrito kick. He makes burritos, he steams rice. So he's got, chicken, he's got rice, he's got his burritos. Um, and then, I just made barbecued beef last
Oh,
week. I
wow.
had a roast that I wanted to use, and 24 hours. It took so long to get it to the consistency that I wanted. But I used one pot, and that was all the cleanup that I had. And it wasn't a lot of fuss and a lot of muss, and it wasn't going to burn. So I highly recommend it. I've made stews in it. Just really amazing for doing stuff that in quantities where you've got leftovers. I'm a huge fan of leftovers.
Okay, that sounds perfect. I like leftovers, because again, it's right where it is. You can freeze it. And like with cooking, it's not one of my, I love to eat. And if it has more than 5 ingredients, I'm like, oh, like I can't eat. I can't even. So, okay. So I really might have to, if Nicole's watching, Nicole, I'll get the Instapot as she keeps talking about. And we have it. Yep. It helps to hear it being intentional while eating.
It does, and I think, I mean, gosh, it helps me all the time too. Every time I say something to a client, it reminds me of how to make sure that I'm keeping an eye on my own behavior, because it's so easy to just do something else.
It really is, especially if we, again, like so many of us grew up in, I don't know, like, the 80s, kind of where the advent of I think the advent of that TV meal kind of thing started to creep into life here for us. More instant type of foods.
Oh my gosh, we lived on ramen. Can you imagine in college? TV tables, we're eating in front of the TV was the height of treats growing up, right? But that means you're not being mindful with what you're putting into your mouth anymore. You're just putting stuff into your mouth.
Yes. And it's again, I think they even have like mindfulness. They have whole areas of like practice where people specialize in just mindful eating, where you sit and they go on a retreat and you do a practice and like you're eating peas. But when you do become mindful of it, it becomes a whole different experience. Oh, okay. Like eating peas is kind of fun. They kind of go squish. It's interesting.
Absolutely. I prefer to be mindful with my wine tasting, but if you want to do peas, that's okay too.
So I know we had to wrap things up, but you did say wine. So in terms of you talking about health and wellness, what is on the realm of alcohol and wine in the realm of health and wellness? You led with that. I can't leave it. I can't leave it without it going there.
I think so. Eat, move, and recharge, right? So things that bring you joy. I am a firm believer in having a whole meal. I like to enjoy my meals. I like them to be pretty. I like them to taste good. I'm a wine aficionado, so having a good wine with a meal makes my meal taste better, makes it more enjoyable. And I'm not talking about a bottle; I'm talking about a glass, right? But I think it's important to know that this is for a lifetime. This is a sustainable balance for a lifetime. It's not just for a minute. It's not a diet. You have to enjoy if you're going to keep doing it.
Oh, fantastic. I'm sorry. Please, my dad is, peas. We have, sure, peas. Yeah, my dad doesn't have frozen peas for a treat. Yes, peas. They're great. And also good for injury. They kind of mold around things. So if you're out and you bump your knee while you're exercising, you have frozen peas and you can sit down, have your frozen peas, put it on your knee, heat them up in the pot, in your Instapot, and have a nice glass of wine. So
what more could you want?
Yeah, well, really, what more could we want in life? Oh my gosh. Dawn, thank you so much for having this conversation with us today to help bring that awareness up for mindful eating, for movement, for re-energize, and that all that reinforcing and mindset shifts toward, to keep us along that path of keep moving towards a healthier lifestyle. So for anybody who's watching, for anybody who sees this in the feed, where can they contact you? How can they contact you for more information? And I think you had mentioned you have something that people can sign up for too.
Absolutely. I have a free guide that I'll put the link in the comments on nutrition lies. And so that's free for everybody who's watching and listening, replay or live. I'll put the link there. And then I also have a free group if you're interested in having more conversations like this. It's called Never Diet Again. It's on Facebook. So come join me there.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much, Dawn. If anyone who's on the live listening, if you've enjoyed having Dawn on, please give her a thanks for me as I give her a thanks here. So
thanks so much for having me, Dani. I really appreciate it.
Dawn, thank you. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Bye.